welcome. Thank you all for coming. This is our kickoff of our 10th anniversary of the Dwight Public Library Friends presentation of Winter Travelogue Series. So thank you so much for coming. And today we're going to hear all about your recent trip to Iceland. So I am happy to introduce Pat and Ken Phelps. Take it away.
Okay, hi everybody. I think I know probably 75% of the or 90% of you out here. So, thanks, guys. So welcome. I'm Pat. This is Ken. For those of you who don't know us, we traveled here in June of this year. We stopped off in Iceland first for 5 days on a trip. Our main trip was going to Svalbard, which is an island above Norway that is part of Norway. And that's about 60 miles, is it, from how far from the North Pole?
We got as close as 600 miles from the North Pole.
600 miles from the North Pole. So that was the main part of the trip that we were doing for our 50th anniversary celebration that we went. But we decided, because I am a bargain shopper and hunter and everything else, we traveled on Iceland Air, and I found out we could stop at Iceland Air for up to 30 days in Iceland without changing the cost of my ticket. So I said, why not? So we stopped here and spent 5 days in Iceland. And we'll take off and see. Questions along the way, don't try to wait till the end, because we're in that group that will forget by the time we get to the end of it. So please, if you have a question, just holler it on out, and we'll be happy to stop and answer as we go along the way. Okay, you can read along, but almost as far north as the Arctic Circle.
The blue line is the Arctic Circle.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Reykjavik is down at the bottom, right there. Yeah.
It's on the western side.
Did you leave a little?
Yeah, do you want that?
I don't know if I do or not, but
Or you just push the
yeah,
button on the
we'll
side.
see if it works or not. Sometimes, no, it doesn't. Oh, yes. Nope,
Works.
it doesn't on the screen. It's
Show
okay.
up.
Doesn't show up on the screen, different colors only. So that's fine. Okay.
This, of course, we just explained this already.
Yes.
I wasted a whole slide.
I forgot you had that on there already. So. All right, so we rented the car and took off. We are doing the southwestern region. Iceland is not a big island, but it's fairly big. In 5 days, you're certainly not going to get all the way around the island, especially not the way we like to stop and tour and take time looking at different things. So yes, Ken, because we've traveled a lot, we remembered this time we buy a map. We did not have GPS in the car, and even when we do have GPS, sometimes it doesn't always work. Yes. So, and we have cursed ourselves many a trip because we didn't remember to take a map with us ahead of time. And you can't buy maps anymore. That's kind of a thing of the past, which we learned on the past trips. But we've stopped at every gas station and every place you could think of that used to have maps. They don't have them anymore. So now we remember ahead of
They
time.
have SIM cards, but not maps.
But not maps. So population is 372,000. So about a little more than half of what Wisconsin is.
No, the area.
The area.
The size
Okay,
is 60%. So Wisconsin's like what? 15 million or 5 million? So
There you go, 5.8 million. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we arrived in the morning, picked up our car, and we were off. So you're gonna follow the blue line. We did all of this in our first day. It looks like a lot, but it really wasn't. For those of you who do not know me, I am a waterfall freak. I love waterfalls. We travel to a lot of places primarily because I heard that there are waterfalls there. This is, of course, one of the places. Iceland is very well known for waterfalls everywhere. So our first stop was at the national park.
at the, Thingvellir.
Thingvellir. You don't say the P. There it is. Thingvellir National Park.
So for renting a car, do you need a special license right there?
No, you don't need a special license. And most of Europe now, your driver's license in the US is, you don't need European licenses or anything anymore. At one time you did, but you do not need driver's license.
Well, I'm not really sure, but we got away with it anyway.
They didn't get caught.
Yeah, and he's driven in quite a few countries in Europe, and we've never had any trouble. So, yeah, so this was our first stop at the visitor center. It was very nice. We had, most of the time we had really pretty, very nice weather. Some of them you're up high, so it was cool and windy, but it's divided by the Mid-Atlantic Rift. And at this spot where we were, you can really, really see the where the divisions are with the cracks and the fissures, so. Between the plates, it was really quite obvious.
The two
Good picture.
tectonic plates are moving apart, and so you keep getting this big crack in between the plates. That's what they call the rift.
So the fjords in Reykjavik are on the North American one, and then most of the rest of the island is the Eurasian plates. As it says, it's the only place in the world where the rift is above sea level, so you really get a chance to see here. It's okay, we're just starting, so.
Okay, good.
Are you gonna get into, that's why they have volcanoes and hot and everything? I would imagine, right? Some of it.
Somewhat, we don't tend to get into a lot of that because, you know, but you can jump in and say anything you want about that, you know, we just,
I'm just guessing.
yeah.
What was the question?
If we get into much about why that's because why they have the volcanoes
okay.
and all of that, yes,
It's on a rift, so.
because it's on the rift.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of sliding going on underneath, the plates, you know. And, if somebody asks a question, you should say the question again so everybody else can hear it. Otherwise,
Okay,
the
you want to
Zoom
say your
people
question
can't hear it.
again?
No,
Okay, is it because we know that Iceland has all those hot springs
Uh-huh,
and a lot of volcanoes?
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, there was Surtsey, the whole new island was being formed in the late sixties. And is it because it's on the rift that they have all of that volcanic activity and the hot water?
Yes. So the question was, because they have all these volcanoes, is it because of the rift? And it's because the two plates are moving apart, but also sliding against each other, probably a little bit sliding north and south as well as separating east to west. So that's where what creates all the volcanic energy. As far as I know.
but we don't have a recent PhD in geology or anything, so. So this is the walkway where you really get, you know, to see the fissures and what it looks like in between and what has been caused because of the shifting of the plates and everything. And this was a very beautiful walk all along with spots like this where you can look way down and see how far down the cracks have gone, so. And again, because Iceland is one of the few places that you're above sea level, you actually get to see this. Most of the time, this is underwater. You don't get to see it, so. And then you can see on the right side here, the kind of the ripple effect that the weather and the volcano and that has caused on the
Cooling
rocks.
lava.
The
yeah.
cooling of the hot lava and then the cooling down of the lava as it's flowing and everything causes these kind of ripple effects. So it's a very beautiful, unusual country. I mean, it's called land of fire and ice because of the two things, the volcanoes and the ice, the glaciers and that. But it's just because of those two elements, it's really created this otherworldly atmosphere. And it's just a very, very different and beautiful place to see.
When you're walking through this canyon like this, the only thing you can think of is I hope the plates don't decide to move together.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are some birds that we saw along. These are called whimbrels. They have little curved beaks. They're
Ken loves to take
I
pictures
take
of
a lot of
birds.
pictures of birds.
Yeah, so if you're new to our slideshows, you will be seeing birds everywhere.
Hooper swans.
Yeah, these were cool. We were kind of going down the road and I yelled, "Oh, those are swans, I think." And he says, "No, they were geese." I said, "No, they were swans." So he got stopped and then we had to come around, and we do a lot of that when we're on our own traveling too. We go back, we argue a little bit, then we come back, and then one of us has to say they were right.
She was right again.
Usually me. Okay, now this was a crater we had heard about, and again, it was a phenomenal. I've seen craters before, but because we could actually walk around it looks like it's huge, but you can walk around the top. So you can go down to the bottom and be right at the water's edge, or then you can walk around the upper
rim.
area of the rim. And it was a beautiful, beautiful crater. 6,500 years old.
How was that formed? Through a volcano?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a volcanic.
it's a
crater.
volcanic crater, yeah.
There's probably a big explosion and it blew everything out, you know, and then left a crater.
Wow.
Was it hot water?
Oh, it's Ptarmigan.
No, it
no.
was cold.
No, it was,
Ptarmigan.
yeah, the ptarmigan. We kind of scared that one up as we were walking around. You can see I'm up at the top of the rim there. We walked around, so. And again, I think we had a question earlier about you know, your level of, comfort with walking and being able to see things in this country. And, you know, like that was you don't have to take that walk, but it was an easy walk. There were stairs to get kind of gradual to get you up to the top, and then you walked around, but you're doing it on your own. So if it takes you a longer time because you want to stop and, you know, and you want to stop to look anyway, so, you know, you get your little breaks in between, so. Okay, this, a little farther down the road was this town called, Geyser, and it's where the first geyser was, seen, and the word geyser came from this area. This is where it originated from, so.
What's it mean?
Air coming out of the water, on the ground, shooting up, so.
It roughly translates to don't look down the hole.
Yeah. Nothing like a Old Faithful type thing or anything, of course, not as scheduled timing as that is. Sometimes it doesn't even go off at all, they said, but it was probably about every 15 or 20 minutes when we were there, the day we were there, so. It was pretty cool. Lots of hot springs in this, obviously, it's a geothermal area, so there's lots of hot springs going off in this area.
The video didn't play, I don't know why.
What?
The video is not playing, but, okay. So these are boiling pots, you know,
Oh, it's.
typical hot area, kind of things like out Yellowstone.
So that means the other ones won't go either, probably.
Right, no, the videos are playing.
Okay. Well, you'll have to imagine that you saw the bubbling water because we had a video of this, but evidently when he switched over to their computer, it didn't switch.
We're gonna need our money back.
Yes. Bubble, 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 does that count? This was the restaurant right in the visitor center and that, and so we decided to stay there that night. Because as you saw, we made that big long loop and our hotel was at the very end of that loop, so I was getting hungry along the way, so.
The food was really good, so we're gonna keep an eye out for geysers because it's obviously a good place to go. for food.
What is that?
Sandwich. or something.
You had, mine on the right-hand side was, risotto, and you had, I think it was like it was a duck, some unusual kind of a sandwich, like duck or pheasant or something. It was something we were not expecting to have at all in this little kind of, you know, gift shop, little cafeteria type restaurant, and it came out looking very nice and very, you know, and it was, but I can't remember what it was.
I'm thinking,
Potatoes are on his plate. I remember that they were.
I'm thinking given where we were, it's probably boiled ham.
Yeah, that was way extra boiled probably, but it wasn't. It was very good.
Seal liver.
Yeah. It was very good. So these are the names of some of the waterfalls. Foss, Foss is Icelandic word for waterfall. That's also whenever we travel, one of the first words I learn is the word for waterfall. So when I'm looking at my maps, I can just be routing him, okay, we gotta go see all of these. So, you know, we picked some of these routes because there were so many waterfalls in that area. Some of them were very easy to find. Others we drove around for a couple of hours and never did find it, so. This is one of the most well-known ones. When you look at any advertising for Iceland or calendars, or usually you're going to see Gullfoss on there because it's going to be one of the ones that are very well known. Very beautiful waterfall. Very windy here. You'll see by the way we're dressed. It wasn't that it was cold, but you're up high and it was very, very windy. And of course, misty because you know the spray all over you. And you can see the hike here. Very flat, pretty easy hiking along the way. Again, most of these places had benches or stuff to stop if you wanted to, but they were all laid out way up at right by the waterfall is the observation point there. So
Is that the rift, part of the rift?
No, these are just glacial melt rivers, you know, carving their way through the rock.
Now, this one was kind of unusual because it was the two of them, it split, you know, the waterfall and then the rock formation, it made it split. So it was pretty cool to see the two of them coming down. And there was like no one here. It's not a big one. It's not on the main tourist path. So it just, you know, when we were driving around, we found this one. I think we saw one other person when we were leaving, they were pulling in to come see it. So.
So this is a redwing. It's like a robin.
Size wise and everything.
It's same size and everything, and it sings very beautifully up in the tree. So we saw a lot of those around. they don't have robins like ours, but these are pretty much the same thing. That's a sort of alpine flowers, you know,
Again, we were there
Plants.
early in the season. We were there in,
June.
June,
Yeah.
so yeah. Which is early for Alpine.
But it's a lot of very cold climate normally, so the plants are typically alpine kind of plants, right? So this, we were trying to go through this gate, and this bird was not happy with us because he had his nest right near there. So he was giving us a lot of trouble, but we managed to get through okay. It's another very big river here.
Yeah, yeah, this was a waterfall that, again, we saw as we were kind of going down the road, and it, the only way we could figure out how to get into it was to go into the farmer's field. And so we pulled off the side of the road, and the gate was kind of, you know, there was no signs posted, so we thought, okay, we can probably get in. And then it was open because we actually drove our car back over there and positioned it around so we could see the waterfall, and then sat in the car because it was very cold and windy that day. We sat in the car and we had our picnic lunch inside the car because we were going to be blown away if we were outside. So lupine, if you are travelers up northern Wisconsin or Minnesota, you will see lupine all over up there. And it was
But it's
just-
imported from Europe.
yeah, it's imported from Europe, but it was just beautiful, just in perfect timing for seeing it. It was just really, really pretty. Now, this was kind of the same area where the waterfall was, and Ken walked down the trail and went across the bridge, and I walked partway down, but as I was going down, I kept thinking, I'm going to have to turn around and come back up this again. So I decided not to go all the way, which is what I'm saying. You make your own decisions. He went all the way down, went over across the bridge. I went about halfway and waved to him on the bridge, and then he had to make the trek back up again, and he took the picture. So we didn't need to both be there as far as I was concerned.
You can see the
The
basalt
right,
column.
yeah, the right-hand side are the basalt columns, and again, you'll see more of these later on. These are formed a lot because of the weather conditions.
Slowly cooling lava.
Yeah, the lava that, you know, gets deposited and then it slowly cools down, and then you've got all of the wind and all of that. And you'll see this in other pictures as we come up. There's a lot of areas that have these big, beautiful, tall columns like this. Unusual, because usually you see the rocks going horizontally in that, where this is all the vertical.
And they're like hexagonal shapes, like crystal structures, you know.
Yeah, we'll have better pictures when we get to this beach later on. There, you really can see some really good pictures of the columns. Any other questions, please holler. Okay. So if you don't like waterfalls, I'm sorry, you're probably going to be bored because there's a lot of them. So, not as many as our Norway trip, but there were plenty of them. So this was the one you could actually walk behind the waterfall, and we opted against that. We have done that in other places, but it was very, very slick and slippery. That because of the waterfall, and also because they'd had rain recently, and we had just little rain.
Yeah, we didn't have the best
We had
rain
little
here.
rain jackets. We didn't have full rain gear or anything. And I had cameras and everything else, so we didn't want to go back there. and
Really
get
get a
so-
sense of how
now it's
big
working.
that
Oh,
is.
now it's working.
There. Yeah.
We didn't think it would work because the other one didn't.
You get a sense of how big that is with the people.
Right,
Yeah, right.
exactly. That's why, yeah, you can see the people behind it and how little they are, you know, and you get an idea. Yeah, there's just something about those waterfalls that, you know, that power and all that water and the noise of all of that coming down that just,
Now, this isn't like the Himalayas or something. Where's all that water coming from? Is it a glacier or something?
oh, there's glaciers all around.
There are 3,000 square mile ice caps there. you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That explains it.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind of crystal clear.
yes, and cold. Cold. Cause I usually have to put my toes in the water wherever we go, with someplace, in some body of water, and, you know, and it was cold.
These are cotton-like plants, looks like cotton. So I don't know what it is, but
We couldn't figure out. Okay, is this the one where there was like 3 of them all in a row?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, there was 3, like like almost like a frontage road, and there was like 3 or 4 of them all down the frontage road, so you could park in one spot and you could walk down to see them all. And
this
this
was
one-
pretty cool because there's a rock wall in front of it with a crack, so you could see the waterfall behind the rock, but course, you could go through there too, but you might get your feet wet.
Yeah, that was a very big one. We didn't get very close to this one again because it was so big and the sprays, you know, I mean, some people were way up there, but you can tell by the way the picture is that we didn't get even as close as the farthest back people were there. So, but that was a very, yeah, just beautiful. And obviously all of the mosses and everything are just gorgeous there because of all of the moisture. There's the rocks and everything that are covered with moisture. Okay, so this is, I'm not gonna say that word, you can read it yourself, because but KULL, the gull means glacier, like FOSS, Foss is the waterfall, this is glacier. So again, if you wanted to see glaciers, and we followed them, then you're looking on your maps for words that end with KULL. And you'll see in the back there, all of that white is the glacier coming off of the ice
It's
field.
like a river, but it's a
It's
river
an
of ice.
river, it's an ice river. And that's what glaciers are. And this is an area that still has a lot of healthy glaciers. They are receding just like everywhere else in the world. And, but they still have a lot of beautiful glaciers. We're like here in the US, in our national park called Glacier, we have one remaining glacier left, and it's so far back you can't even see it anymore unless you fly over it. So we are in a town of Vic, which I happen to fall in love with. I love this little town. I would go back and stay there, I think, a week or two just in that little town. But in the town, we took a little walk around in the back to the beach area, and then we saw these formations out in the water. It just looked really, really cool. And I said, if we go back another time, I'd like to take a boat ride back there.
Was that you in the parasail there?
No. Wasn't him either, yeah. As I said, we only had 5 days on this trip, so we did not go.
I was trying to read the phone number of the
place to call.
place to call, yeah. But
So, but another trip, because like I said, they have boat trips out to those formations. You can take boat trips out to see the puffins and things like that. But
so they were parasailing right off the bluffs, right off the top of the bluff.
now this area, it was loaded with birds the day we were there. We were told that puffins come here a lot, and I was trying to see puffins, but there were no puffins there, of course, the day we were there, but there were a lot of terns and fulmars and everything there, so.
The puffins were out in the water, we could see them, but
Yeah,
not
but they
close,
weren't
no.
coming back.
They weren't nesting.
Okay, so Vic is this real kind of like it's a tourist town, like our Wisconsin Dells kind of a town. So but it's very small. It was maybe 3 blocks long or something like that, 3 or 4 blocks long. But you can do and hire anything you'd want to do, parasailing. You can go on the boat rides. You can go ice glacier hiking and walking on the glaciers. You can go for volcano walks. So we ended up deciding to take an ice cave tour. So we were riding, you'll see it in one of these big Jeep buggy kind of things that took us out on an ice field. And then we got to go see one of the few ice caves that are available in the summertime, but it's very, very small because of the summer. So yeah, so we were in this kind of a vehicle. So you could go, and we were actually driving, and you'll see we were driving on the big ice fields.
Lava fields.
On the lava fields that are covered over with ice.
Ash fields.
Ash field of that, yeah. Yeah, this is what we're driving on. You can see us coming down the hill. So it was kind of an adventure, but you're not having to do much. So, but you're going up the hills and then you're coming down the hills, and we did get out when we'll be walking around on, we had crampons on because we were going to be walking in areas that had ice on them and that. And really great views of the glaciers all around the big volcano there. You could really see the glaciers coming in.
And a spectacular waterfall somewhere
And
in there.
spectacular waterfall. 1 or 2 of them were there, yeah. Little ones and big ones.
So it's a little hard to see, but if you look there, there's kind of a big arc along the top, 1/4 of or even higher on the image, and that's the top of the ice cap.
Yeah, right.
So this is all
Yeah.
ice up here.
This is all ice.
Right.
All the cars.
Unfortunately,
So this is the whole big ice field that's.
yeah, along here, this line.
Yeah.
And so that's how much, there's thousands of feet thick ice on top of everything.
Now, this is our group. There's, I think, 9 or 10 of us that day. And we were able to get on out and walk around, and we were making our way this is all old dead lava mostly. And we were making our way across here to get over to
Oh,
the,
this is all ice.
we,
We are on ice, but.
but it's
just
lava
has-
under,
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's ice that has moraine and
Okay.
ash covering
Alright,
on top of it.
Okay,
So it looks like it's ground, but actually it's deep ice underneath it.
and that's what we had our crampons on.
Right.
We had to
You
wear.
could fall into like ice pits in there though. Wouldn't you?
You could, and there were, he's asked if you could fall into ice pits and stuff like that.
Or
I mean,
crevasses.
You have to pay attention to the guide, yeah, because you are on ice fields, so there would be crevasses, there would be holes and pits. There actually was something which we were quite surprised to hear when we get farther, and they called it,
Quicksand.
quicksand.
Yeah.
And, it was just like a muddy area, and he said, just whatever you do, don't wander off of the trails, make sure you follow what we're telling you, because you'll get in there and it just kind of sucks you up like a quicksand. So,
We lost two people that way. They didn't listen.
we didn't pay enough for better guides, I guess. So here you'll see us, we had helmets and our crampons and everything on us as we're walking along. We didn't walk far. I mean, you might think it was a little difficult of a trail, but it wasn't a long trail, or anything. So now here's the cave. And this is, they have a lot of these around, but in the summertime, of course, most of them melt and the openings are lost because of the melting ice and everything else.
No, I think the problem was that they couldn't go
You
that
can't
far
go- you
back
can't
because there's
get in
so
there.
much melting everywhere. They couldn't get that far back on the
They can't,
glaciers. No.
but he said that a lot of the entrances will just disappear in that, and you kind of get sometimes waterfalls over it and things like that. But the caves are very small because, like he said, there's so much melting going on in the summertime. In the winter, you can go back through. We could only just kind of pretty much go into the hole. He had lights to flash to show us the walls and everything else. And then we come back out again, but you could see the passageways that, if you were there in wintertime, I think you'd be able to get a nicer one. But the trip, we thought it was well worth the trip because you got to be out on the field and you got to walk and you got to see the glacier so much closer and all of that. So it was definitely something to do if you go to Iceland. I would recommend it.
Those holes made by the famous Iceland moles.
So,
No, the holes were not made by the famous Iceland moles. No, those would be very big moles. So, yeah, another beautiful canyon that we got to, as we were walking to and from the cave, he was taking us to see some of the stuff. And he was checking because our guide he's been doing it for like 30 some years and he lives in the area and he goes off all the time. While we were standing here taking pictures and that, he went off to check some of the areas to see where the ice had been receding, so he could mark the differences and everything and see how much changes have gone on from the year before or the last time he was there a month ago or whatever it was. So they do a lot of calculations from just the guides, not always from the big schools or anything. The guides are really checking out stuff. And he was telling us how much the ice flow had receded and gone back already, so. Yeah, now this was interesting. It was a little cafe, and our guide actually told us, he said, if you have time, stop in the cafe and get a bowl of lava soup. And I thought, well, if we're in Iceland, of course you're gonna have lava soup, So it was really cool because it's a bread bowl, obviously, but the bread is dyed the outside to make it look like a rock. So you got this kind of rock shaped bread with the color, and then the top was open and it's a bright red tomato based kind of soup inside of it that's a little bit spicy but not on fire. You could have a fiery one or you could have a non-fiery one. So I had a non-fiery one, but it was very good, like a minestrone type tomato based soup. And it was just kind of fun because it was served in the bowl. So somebody had good marketing ideas. Yeah, really good marketing ideas.
and our tour guide was probably related to whoever owned the restaurant.
Yeah, well, he got free meals there every time he came back. So I think that's why he was supporting it, because he gets a free meal.
It's a small town.
Yeah, yes, a very small town. So this is a very small town because there's one road that goes along the southern, that's this Highway 1, and there is only the one road that goes the whole southern area of the island. And yeah, we stopped, I don't even know, sometimes we probably didn't even make it for 5 minutes before the next waterfall came, but And this is the highway. Very, very nice highway, very, very well maintained and not very crowded. It's not like our national parks in June or July where you're bumper to bumper. It was really nice. Are those the same rock formations that are
Yeah.
Vic? Yes.
Or similar, it may
Yeah.
not be Vic, I don't know, it's possible.
Yeah, I think it might be.
There was a lot of those
Yeah,
here and there.
yeah.
That was our hotel.
You gotta cut corners where you can, you know?
But you can see they went with the sod covered buildings, it's a good way to insulate them and everything.
At least in the past, they certainly were. All right, so.
I'm not seeing a whole lot of trees, so maybe is wood at a premium too, or?
Yeah, trees are a premium.
Yeah, trees were at a premium.
There were a few here and there, but not a lot.
But the trees are not gonna grow well in the ice and they're not gonna
Right.
grow well in the lava fields, and that's about all that's there. You got water, you got ice, or you got a
And
lava.
it's a
field.
lot of cold weather, so.
Yeah. So you're seeing glaciers all along. This is another national park that, we were near. This is not his picture. Otherwise, these are all his pictures, but
So all these little fingers coming off the ice cap here, those are glaciers. Yes, those are like the previous pictures I showed you of glaciers. This is 3,000 square miles of ice. And so around the edges is where it's the ice is flowing down and off to the sea.
and then that's what you're going to get your waterfalls from your glaciers coming down, and as it melts you. So here's a really great picture of one of the glaciers coming out off of the ice cap. As he showed you that other picture before where the ice cap was way up high, and then all of these arms of the glaciers are all kind of breaking off and slowly moving on down. And you can see how it does look like a river. I mean, it's a frozen river. It's a river of ice.
And it moves like a river,
And it
except
moves
it's
like a
very
river,
slow.
but very slow,
Yeah.
much, much slower.
And this is an ice fall, because when the ice is going down a very steep drop off, it actually breaks and cracks into pieces and flows down. So it's a very dangerous place to walk on. Nobody goes on the ice falls. Not even me.
Yeah, he found a little bird as he took off. on
Yeah,
his
another
walk
red
on the back.
wing. Yeah.
This is we're coming to the end of our long day on that first line. And we're,
Yeah, well, this was when we first got to Hoff to the hotel,
yeah,
we doubled back to
to
go on
take a picture
to
of
walk
this
on
at
the
night.
glacier.
Yeah.
Or by the glacier. I didn't walk on the glacier.
And this was the little lagoon that was right there.
There's a lot of scary warnings, but who reads that stuff?
This is dusk in the evening. Although it doesn't get dark up in that area much in the summertime either, so. You can see here with the ice, the glacier ice with the blue, the coloring. In most places when you're around glaciers, you'll get that beautiful shade of blue, which is the water that is inside in the freezing. It's not always yucky and dirty looking. Sometimes it is like this with especially in this area, because you've got all of the
Submarine
volcanic
that
ash
scrapes
and
up on the way.
it scrapes up all of the volcanic ash, but a lot of times glaciers will have that beautiful blue shading in them.
Yeah, they actually grind their way through the rocks, and they so they get sand and rocks on them, and then as they're flowing along the rocks, that sand grinds off more rock off the side. That's why they get these big, deep U-shaped canyons. And
there's another ice fall. And you can see again, some good views of the blue or the water in that. The shading of the colors.
Is this still all on the road? You're just driving?
Yeah, he went off for the road. That's me. Yeah. It was a long day. He decided one more hike out to see that glacier. And I said, okay, you go. And I took a little cat nap. I had enough already, so.
So is the sun, days are longer?
yeah, long
Yes,
days.
long days
Yeah.
in the summertime. Oh, it wasn't quite the 24 hours, but
no.
it was about 20, maybe
It was
21.
pretty, yeah, because the Arctic Circle is when it becomes
Right,
24 hours, and we were a little bit below that.
So we were about probably 20
But we
hours.
are very close, because we were about the solstice or the equinox or whatever it is, but June 21st, right?
Yeah.
It was a really long day.
Yeah, they were long, yeah, and we had been hiking it, and then we saw, the rainbow was right there, so I did wake up in time to see the rainbow, so. And then we saw the double one, it was great. Yeah, double rainbow, and it's so open that you could really see it so nice, it was very, very nice to be able to see it that well. And this town we were in with Hoff, I have to tell the little story because we had our hotel reservations. Again, if you're gonna go to Iceland, I would certainly recommend that you make all of your plans ahead of time because it's not very big. There's not a lot of infrastructure like hotels, or that there are hotels, but it's not like, even like Fort Atkinson, there's not 5 or 4 hotels in one small little town. There's maybe one. This little town, it was kind of as far off as we were going to go, as far out west as we were going to go. And we pulled into the sign. We finally found a sign that said Hoff, and we pulled in, but it looked like it was a little hamlet of about 5 houses. And I said, well, this can't be where it is. There's only like 4 or 5 little houses here. So we drove by, and then we drove back, and then we drove by again. We said, well, let's pull in, and we went on the road. We went back to where the 4 or 5 houses were. We saw a tiny little sign about this far off of the ground that said Hoff Hotel with a little arrow kind of written on it. And back about a street and a half behind the little main drag, it was not maybe 2 car lengths to begin with, was this road where our hotel was, but you would there was no sign from the main road that said the hotel was back there or anything. So they make you look sometimes for what and that's because we already had a room. If you were looking to find a room, good luck. So yeah, so you definitely should be making your reservations ahead of time. This is a great example of the thatching on the roof and everything. This was an old church that was right down in the little town of Hoff. We walked out to it from the hotel and everything, and you could see it. They still have services in this church.
Yep.
And it's still used in that area. The cemetery and everything was very.
Some of the parishioners stay there.
Yeah, some of them live there. Yeah,
I mean,
forever. Yes.
Forever, yeah.
Yeah, it was very much a local cemetery. All right. And then that took us like 2 or 3 days to get all the way out to Hoff. And now we're going back, and we're stopping at all the stuff that we didn't know whether it would be worth to stop, or we didn't know about it. We learned about it as we were picking up more information as we went. So now on our way back, we're making a few more stops. Couple waterfalls we missed because they were on the other side, and I can't swivel my head fast enough to see all of those. So we got a couple of these.
What kind of trees?
And what type of trees?
They're
Trees of any size?
beaches and trees, yeah, like that. Typical northern kind of trees.
Yeah.
If I was a botanist, I'd be naming all these flowers, but
Yeah, full flower.
Yeah. And there again is the road. You can see the one road that goes through. Yeah. This is very true. I sent this picture on Facebook to my whole family, and we instantaneously got all these messages back mostly to Ken. Is Mom making you buy that house? Because this, of course, would be my dream house, right in front of a waterfall. It's just like life just doesn't get any better than that, as far as I'm concerned. Now we saw all this area coming when we were going by on the way out, but we didn't have time to stop. So we stopped, and you can take a hike all back through there. And they're completely covered in moss. So when you look at it, it looks all squishy and soft, like what is it in Scotland, like the moors and that. It looks like it's going to be squishy, but actually it's not. I mean, they're very hard chunks of lava that have been covered by the moss, but they're very sharp and very rugged. So you're not allowed to walk here. There's one section that they have made a tourist area where there's paths that go along, so you can actually see what the rocks and that look like, but otherwise it's very, very, very sharp and very hard to walk on and that. So
and we would be driving through this like for miles and miles.
yeah, for an hour, just driving across this kind of desolate area. Yeah, this was a very big volcanic eruption in the 1700s. And the moss is very protective, 100 years to recover from damage. That's why they don't want you walking around. In the one area that you are allowed to see everything, you can see that the moss is pretty much gone, you know, because of people touching it and walking in that area. This is back to the little village of Vic where we went on the glacier ride.
Ice cave, right?
The ice
Yeah.
cave ride, and where we had our soup and all of that.
Architecture is pretty simple, huh?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
simple, very northern, simple, yeah, you know, the Scandinavian kind of architecture. Yeah, this again is a church high up on the hill. Go back a minute. High up on the hill, this is the town, and then this is up above on the hill looking down into Vic. And it's a local church.
What kind of, do they have a predominant denomination there?
I don't even know that the churches were denominational. They were just more community kind of churches. That one is just a community church, and the little one on Hall. And it wasn't like Episcopalian or Protestant, it was just.
I don't know. We didn't go into one. I could go back to the Hoff's church and see, maybe it said on the sign. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But I remember reading the Hoff one, it was just a community. I don't remember that it
Okay.
had any specific, you know, denomination in front of it, so.
So there's a nice beach if you want to just lay around and relax.
Yeah.
Be careful where you put your towel though, because it's kind of bumpy.
Now, this is this is the beach we had heard about. We missed it going down, and then everybody were passing there say, did you get there? And I said, no, we missed it, but so we made sure on the way coming back, we walked down to, it's a beautiful, beautiful beach. You have the ocean right in front of you, but this is the better examples of that basalt column that's due because of the volcano. And we'll have closer up pictures, but you can see off to the right of this huge cave, the columns there, and they're hexagonal kind of columns.
It's a sea cave.
And this is a big, beautiful sea cave. And the only other place that I know of, now there might be others, but there's basalt like this in Ireland, in the northern part of Ireland. If any of you've ever
The
been to
Giant's
Ireland,
Causeway.
by Giant's Causeway and everything. The same kind of stuff is up there, but this is what it, you know, outside. It looks like they're trees, but they're not. I mean, this is all rocks that are out there, but it's an amazing configurations.
The water's so blue, is that photography or was it really that blue?
No, it's the water's pretty blue.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is blue because, yeah, it's really pretty blue. I mean, that some of that might be the camera, but it's very blue. This is the inside of the cave. Yeah. And there's our puffins. We did see puffins, but they were a long way out. So luckily he has a camera that has a nice long lens. Otherwise we would not have been able to catch the puffins. And like I said before, I would love to, if I go back out there again, I would take a half-day boat tour or something that gets you right on out to see the puffins. This turn, you can see the very long tail feathers.
they were fishing like a kingfisher. They
Yeah, they
kind of
dive.
hover and then they dive into the water, get the fish. He was very noisy, this
Yeah,
godwit.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
squawking at us.
He ran us out.
So, questions, anyone?
Trolls, do you hear about trolls?
Oh.
Trolls are very big in Iceland. Did you hear about
Trolls?
Trolls, like in Norway.
Yeah. I didn't think trolls were as predominant in Iceland as they were in Norway. In
Yeah.
Norway, they were everywhere. Every place you went in, there were trolls. They were on the roofs. I mean, yeah, trolls around, but it was much more commercialized in Iceland than I thought it was in Norway. I mean, Norway, it was definitely the history of the trolls, and they believed in the stories of the trolls and that. I didn't get that feeling in Iceland nearly as much.
Oh.
Other questions? But if you wanna, you know,
I read an article somewhere about Iceland troll, maybe it was a.
and maybe it's more.
It may have been tongue. They were pretending like they like, and things, certain flowers with the gnomes, and they leave things out.
And maybe in the cities and that more, you would hear about some of that, you know, I mean, we didn't stay in Reykjavik, we stayed in Reykjavik overnight. But we're not city people anyway, we didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't really care about staying in the big city. We just wanted to see as much of, and like I said, we just did the southern route. We went up to see the national park a little ways up, but did you have a map on there? Of Iceland, of the whole country of Iceland in the beginning? I mean,
Yeah,
this is-
right at the beginning.
Can you get back to
Sure.
that? It's a, you know, it's a fairly. And it's, we just kind of went along that very bottom southern part. At some point, it would be great, and a lot of people do, they just circumnavigate the whole island. And it'd be fun. It's a great area where they, you know, a lot of people rent the campers and that, so.
I'm not sure I had
No, I
like an
don't think you have
overall,
that.
I just had sections of like that,
You had-
We had it. There it is.
Yeah.
but I do have a map.
Oh, we could.
There we go.
As far as language, most people speak English.
Everybody speaks English, but Icelandic is its own language, yes.
Yeah.
So the local people do speak Icelandic, the signs are in Icelandic. and everything else,
So
yeah.
it
But they're
wouldn't,
in English too.
Iceland is too big to fit on one page. So here's Reykjavik down here, the southwestern, so this is where we toured, was along this bottom area.
Yeah, so we just went along here. And then it goes around here. So, you know, some people will just, you know, make the trip.
All these fjords all around is really amazing.
Yeah,
You can circumnavigate the entire.
the whole entire island. And I know there are boat trips that do the whole thing, and it's like a 10-day to 2-week trip to go all the way around, so.
Sorry, our Zoom people, we couldn't show you that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi,
area.
I'm a Zoom person. I just had a question. Did you guys hook up with a travel group for this at all? Or it sounds like you're pretty much individual and did individual trips. Is that right or not?
This trip was an individual trip. It wasn't with a tour group. Is that what you mean? Did we go on a tour or
Right.
something?
Right, right.
Yeah, no, this part of the trip was our own, we just had independent, we had the 5 days. The rest of our trip where we went on to a different area was with a tour. We tend to travel with tours mostly, but this was an independent one. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would you need to rent a car? Almost looks like it's,
Yeah, would you need to rent a car?
yeah,
Yes, or you'd have to go on a tour.
okay.
But you can, you know, you can fly into Reykjavik and have, there's tour companies all over the place that will pick you up at your hotel, and you can do a 3-day or a 5-day or whatever. And they will take you around. There's companies, all kinds of companies that specialize in that, and they specialize in that in cities all over the world. So if you're interested, you know.
But one thing that's very popular there was these, like little
Campers.
camper kind of trucks, you know, a camper vehicle. So you'd have a small, like a little motorhome or for tenting, or a motorhome.
A
So
little minivan that you know, would be set up for you to camp in the back, and there's a lot of that.
saw a lot of those. They're very popular.
Very
People
popular.
rent them, drive around the island.
Sure. Yeah.
What was the temperature, did you say?
Yeah, when we were there in May, most of it was probably
June.
June, mid-60s to 70 in June. It was warm. It was, you know, we were fine with, fleeces on, you know, or a light jacket most of the time. I had hats and gloves with me because I knew, like, when we were up at top of the first big waterfall on some of those areas, you're up higher, it's cold. When you're out on the ice, of course, we had more layers on us because you're out.
It looked like you had winter coat.
No, we didn't try.
It was 40s to 50s sometimes.
Sometimes in the evenings, layers, you know, we had a small puffer, kind of a spring fall jacket, but then we have a fleece that we wear underneath and that, so. And I did have my hat and gloves, so yeah. Other questions?
This is a Zoom lady again. Had one more question about how did you prepare for your trip as far as, did you go through a travel agency or just search on your
No.
own, or how did you do that?
This was just on our own, as I said, in the beginning, our flight that was taking us over to, this other place called, to Oslo and on to Svalbard, which is part of Norway, was a tour, but we flew on, Icelandic Air, and we were able to stop in Iceland for you know, anytime we wanted up to, for a layover. So we stayed there for the layover, and we just did some research on our own, online and on the books, to see the common areas that are, you know, the typical places to stop, and what we could see in 3 to 5 days, and we just kind of plotted it out ourselves.
Actually, it was simpler than that. All we did is look to try to figure out where the waterfalls were. And that's where we went.
Well, it looks like it was a good choice. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. There was another question, Linda.
Were you able to see any northern lights, or does that occur
I know
later in the year?
it's almost all daylight because
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's summer solstice, so it's,
yeah. Later in the year, to see northern
Yeah.
lights, you're more fall, winter in that, you know.
Okay.
Sometimes you can see them, you know, in.
but it's a great place to go in the winter
Yeah.
to see
It's,
that.
yeah, there's all kinds of tours up to Reykjavik and that 4 Northern Light tours, and you just go into Reykjavik and then they will take you out to the places that are the best known to be able to view, you know, so. Yes, sir.
Are there currently any active volcanoes there?
Yes, many, yes,
Any?
many, just
Active,
erupted.
I mean, active.
Oh, yes,
What?
one just
not
erupted.
dormant.
Right near Reykjavik, the week after we were there, a volcano erupted right near Reykjavik.
Yeah, a week later.
And it was a few years back where one erupted and they
I
had so
remember
much
that.
smoke and ash going in the air, they had to shut down the airlines
Europe,
everywhere, all
yeah.
over Europe.
All over Europe, they shut down flights. Yeah, that was maybe 8 years ago or something that the one erupted right outside of Reykjavik. So there are active ones. Yeah.
So the other thing that happens is, and this is one of our guides on the ice cave tour, is he said that like in the Kafta Geopark, there's a big volcano which has a huge ice cap covering it. And so when that volcano erupts, millions and billions of gallons of water, ice melt, and they have a huge torrent of a flood comes off the mountain. And they said, of course, if you happen to be in the way of that, it's bad news. But also what happens is that it's such a big wave of water that hits the ocean that it sets up like tidal waves. And then sometimes those waves come and they wipe out other towns near the ocean. So it's a big event when those things go off, when they have a big ice cap on top of them.
I have read, I don't know how true it is, the Vikings came down, went over to Ireland, got a whole bunch of women, I don't think they paid for, and they headed off to Iceland, and that's the base route of the Icelandic people. Did they look distinct? Could you tell an Icelander? Did they have a general look, big noses, blonde hair, all that sort of stuff?
They looked Scandinavian, but you know, that's about as close as I'd be willing to, yeah.
Like Norwegians?
Yeah.
Like Swedish, Norwegian, or, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of, blonde hair,
Yeah.
thing like that.
There's blonde hair, taller, you know.
But then it's hard to separate out the tourists sometimes, so.
Yeah, because in that area, there's a lot of Scandinavian tourists too, so. And a lot of us have Norwegian and, heritage in us too, so it's hard to tell, but yeah. I didn't see any that made me think of gnomes, so. I'm not sure that there was any of those descendants. Anything else? Well, thank you all for coming. We are only the very first one. There are another one in January, 2 in February, and 2 in March. We will be here again at 7 o'clock tonight. So if you liked it and know friends who are working, please tell them to come tonight at 7. If you didn't like it, please tell them anyway, and they can be surprised and make their own decisions. And otherwise, follow us. We do travelogues at the senior center. We do this one every year, but we do them at the senior center more often, usually about every 2 or 3 months. So if you're interested, follow the senior center and you can see what's coming up over there. Okay. Thank you all for traveling with us. Hope you enjoyed it.